Subscribe to our Once Upon a Time podcast over at oncepodcast.com. There you can get the spoilers and you get these episodes downloaded automatically. And now here we go, discussing this episode. Grab your tissues and handkerchiefs and whatever you call them wherever you're from, because we're going to discuss beauty. You're listening to Once, episode 311, Beauty. Welcome back to another episode of Once, the unofficial podcast for ABC's TV show Up. I'm Daniel J. Lewis.
I'm Jeremy Laughlin.
I'm Erin.
Subscribe if you're not already over at oncepodcast.com. Yes, this was really like Once Upon a Time in South America, Once Upon a Time in Up, or Once Upon a Time up in Hyperion Heights. No, actually, the Up stuff wasn't in the Hyperion Heights. It was in the Edge of Realms.
It was the Edge of Realms.
Yes.
Which is in and of itself a realm.
But it's the edgemost of all realms.
Edgemost.
Yeah. It's like where all the dark matter in the universe of fairy tale lands is stored.
So the realms are flat, not circular?
That's a theological argument. If you haven't seen Pixar's movie Up, you need to see it. Now, if you've seen it, then you know exactly why you need to see it. But then maybe go say it again because it's such a wonderful Pixar movie. Pixar makes great movies. And so much of this episode was just like stuff from Up that you would see the clear connections throughout this episode if you watch Up and then watch this episode. But nonetheless, it's still a good episode. In fact, I would say best episode of the season.
Yes.
Which, I mean, so far, this is only the fourth episode, so I know we don't have all that much to go on.
There weren't enough balloons for it to be Up.
True.
I haven't seen Up.
What? What?
She hasn't seen Up. She hasn't seen Star Wars.
Have you seen anything? In fact, if you watch Up, you'll probably not finish it.
Why?
Because you haven't finished Lost.
Oh, because Lost got silly.
Is that silly or Tilly? Speaking of Once Upon a Time.
Hey, you're the one who totally didn't even say Once Upon a Time in the opener.
We got some great feedback from our audience. Generally, a lot of people are liking this episode, even though, according to some ratings, this was the lowest rated episode of all episodes in the entire series.
But that reflects more on episodes. Well, rated how? Because
viewership.
Yeah, that reflects on previous episodes, not this episode. Who knew? They didn't watch it.
Yeah, and that's not to say it's the lowest rated as in people out there saying, oh yeah, I'd give this episode 5 stars, 4 stars, anything like that. Like you can do with our podcast, by the way. But it's saying how many people were watching according to some very archaic measurement techniques that we can debate that in a separate thing. But nonetheless, I want to sample some of the feedback we received. Andrea T.
I love samples.
From Los Angeles, California said, as a Rumbeller, just wanted to say, I loved this episode. We've been waiting for 7 years for happiness, and we got it. Loved how the teacup has the power to transport between realms. I wonder if Tilly dropping the teacup rather than her shooting Weaver is what caused him to remember. I wonder if the Guardian is the woman... Right, that's for later. Thanks for such a great podcast. From Marcy Smith said, after seeing this episode, I felt I had to write in because it was just so good. I was on team Let It Die after last season and wasn't planning on watching the reboot, but I have. I really loved seeing Rumple and Belle's story play out. I loved that Rumple was finally happy without magic, that he, Belle, and Gideon lived a full life together, and that the concept of letting his true love go was the first step in being able to free himself from the dagger forever. I cried, and finally, Rumple is awake. Thank you, Once writers, for not dragging it out forever. I'm also really liking Alice's personality. The actress is doing a great job. Was she ever in Doctor Who? If not, I think she'd make an amazing companion. This episode is my favorite of the season so far. I hope they wrap up a few more stories because it was so satisfying. Debbie said, I love this episode. I feel the show really nailed it with the story of Belle and Rumple's journey together. The upsetting was wonderful and reminded me how much I loved the beginning of that movie. I like the new series or spinoff and appreciate how the creators have reimagined the stories. I actually like the parallels to the first season. It is a way for fans of the show to connect to the new location and characters. It is hard for many of us to let Snow, Charming, and Emma go. The familiarity of the original show is helpful to make a transition to something different. I believe they got it right. Great job on a wonderful podcast. Thanks for continuing to bring us fans terrific discussions and information about our beloved show. Lindsay said this episode was a really good episode. I know there was already an Espensode this season, but this one could have been it. The dialogue between Rumble was so good. Such a good farewell. And by the way, this episode, as much as it felt like an Espensode, which is an episode written by Jane Espenson, some of our favorites, this one was written by Dana Horgan and Leah Fawn, who have written some other really good episodes together.
Yeah.
So I would say this is the A team of writers, really. And this episode nicely shows that. Keeper of Squid Ink said, Beauty reminded me what I miss about the good parts of what Once Upon a Time can be when it has its amazing moments as a show. Much to my pleasant surprise, this was one of the most well-acted, especially Robert Carlyle, Emily DeRavin, and Andrew J. West, well-developed stories and well-executed episodes. It was moving, sad, and still left you wondering what happens to the current characters. And one more piece of general feedback here. Jessica said, I actually really enjoyed this episode, and I'm not usually a Rumble fan. I love that Rumble took on the Carl and Ellie story from Up. It was such a beautiful end to their story, like the first 10 minutes of Up. Rumble even built a house just like the house from Up, and the location even looks like Paradise Falls from Up. Alice kind of reminds me of Russell from Up. It's only a perfect story because Belle was Rumple's greatest adventure, and now he has to find a new adventure. Alice is going to help Rumple on his new adventure. I also love this story because in Up, Mr. Fredrickson... Mr. Fredrickson was forced out of his home by big real estate guys to make huge apartments. This is kind of Victoria's MO. Thank you for the great feedback. We have some other feedback to share along the way as we're talking as well. Erin, what did you think of the episode overall?
I really liked this episode. I liked both parts of it, not just the Rumble parts. I liked the current day. I don't think we've had a Halloween episode yet in this series. I guess it hasn't taken priority.
Well, do they have Halloween in Storybrooke or in...
But I really enjoyed it, and I really loved the symbolism and parallels that they drew between the Alice storyline and Halloween happening, like putting on the masks and all of that stuff. That was a really cool. It was just a really smart way that they did that. And I loved the Easter eggs. There were not really Easter eggs, but there were tons of hidden Disney characters dressed throughout the episode, which was awesome.
Jeremy, what did you think?
It was, I thought, in so many ways, better done than almost anything in the last several seasons.
Wow.
The cinematography was better. The soundtrack was really good, although I would also counter that with there was too much soundtrack. I noticed on my rewatch, it's like, why is there music playing through every single scene? Well, just let some of the dialogue stand. But that's a complaint I have with a lot of modern shows. And in this case, I actually think the dialogue was strong enough that it could have carried the scene. Whereas a lot of them, it's like, yeah, you better put the soundtrack in. Otherwise, people are just not going to know how to feel.
So we have a rare moment here. All of the planets, and by planets, I mean podcast co-hosts, have aligned, and we liked this episode.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's happened before in the past, yes. But for this season, when we've been flipping back and forth of who likes which episode, and we've had a neutral, a dislike, a like, there are certainly some things to pick apart, maybe, in this episode. And we'll dig further into that. But there's just so much to love, so much to cry over. If you watch Up, also be prepared to cry, especially if you're a parent or you've wanted to be a parent. There's so many things to cry over there. And certainly in this episode, plenty of things to cry over.
Well, think about what this episode rests on as a foundation. There's the basic Hyperion Heights curse. One plot line revolved sort of around finding Lucy, who ran off. That's not super complicated. There was kind of a magical quest of cleaving Rumple from the dagger. But they purposely, Belle kind of crafted it so that they lived their lives instead of doing that. So there wasn't some, big mechanical plot with a lot of moving technical pieces and people pulling terms out. They did finally make one little twist like that at the end. Suddenly Rumple's talking about a guardian and going to a time. Belle didn't even say anything about that. But aside from that, the episode was uncomplicated. They could do things like slow down and show 2 really cool montages. Really. It was just, make it about the characters. Calm down on the mechanics. And that's what they did. If they could have done that far more often for the last several years, I think we'd all have just sort of enjoyed some of the rides a little bit more.
I think that was definitely one of the main things that I heard over and over again from fans, that the show was lacking over the last several years. Like you just said, like, how long was it before we got a good Charmings moment after they were reunited? It was forever before Emma and Charming had any type of father-daughter conversation. Like, I don't think it was until Neil died, which was like a season after the curse was broken. And it was just, that's what the fans have always wanted, is more character stuff and less, what did you call it? Mechanical storylines?
Yeah. Less like machinery, like get the ball to fall in the basket to pull the lever. That's how a lot of the plots developed.
And I don't think anyone can deny that the reason we've gotten so much positive feedback from this episode, and why it's going to be a fan favorite, is because of the character stuff, and because it was Rumble. Because, like, they're not my favorite couple, but this episode is probably the only Rumble episode I've ever liked, and it was a beautiful story, and that's coming from someone who doesn't really like them.
So Rumble being the focus of this episode, let's start our conversation there, or continue rather, since we've already started. And I feel that this, like some of the feedback said, this is the happy ending we've wanted for them. We got to see Hook and Emma have their happy beginning.
Right.
Multiple times, actually. But now they have a different happy beginning coming soon. Little one in the oven. And now for Rumple and Belle, we saw their happy ending, or almost. It is one of their happy endings. We got to see them live their life together, grow old together, and love each other fully. And no more compromise, none of this other flip-flopping stuff. And what it also does for me watching the show is now I know Rumple in Hyperion Heights is a victim. He's not the bad guy. He's not the instigator of this. He has been hoodwinked like everyone else.
Right.
And it makes me now a lot more sympathetic with him, realizing that this way he's been has been a mask.
Right.
And the good man, the Rumple that just wants to, it sounds bad to say end his life, but it's more like give up immortality, because he's lived many, many lifetimes. So the man wants to give up his immortality so that in this universe he can be reunited with Belle.
Right. He Yeah, now we don't wonder so much, well, okay, is he awake or isn't he? And we don't wonder, and if he's awake or when he wakes up, what is he? Is he just that gray, not really good, not really bad Mr. Gold Rumpelstiltskin we've always had? But now he actually was a hero, or, he was reformed, and he lived essentially another lifetime or a half lifetime since we saw him before.
And that he didn't use the dagger at all during that time, not even to build a house. They built it together, doing a nice little up-like montage with the music even sounding like up. It's not exactly the same, but it does sound very close.
They made me feel like a failure at life. They're just like, hey, let's build a house right here. Okay. And it's the best house in the world. And they just built it. How did they know to do that? And by the way, if they can do that just from what's around them, why did anyone ever live in hovels? Why did Rumpelstiltskin not just build a cottage like that?
That's a very good point. But maybe he didn't learn how to build a house except for the last 300 or so years. He's memorized the instructions. He YouTubed a lot while he was in Storybrooke how to build a house.
IKEA is really advanced in the Enchanted Forest, and he built a lot of theirs.
Belle could have read about it.
That's true.
It was also great to see Gideon again. At first, when we saw young little baby Gideon there in Storybrooke, turning 1 year old, as long as he gets cake on his face, it's a success. Yeah, we're looking forward to that with Noodle Baby too. But with Gideon, then when he was a kid running across the bridge, I thought, we just got to see him from the back of the head.
I know.
Giles McKinney won't be in this episode, but I didn't realize it. I didn't see his name in the credit, or maybe it's Gillis.
I was going to say, wait a minute, that sounds like
it's spelled like Giles, but it's probably pronounced Gillis.
Is it Giles?
It could, hey, I don't know. GIF.
Let's
open up that theological argument too. But then to see the actor, the actual Gideon that we've known, and not with his haircut that implies that he's working for the Dark One, or the even darker, the Dark One's mother, actually. To see him, the loving son with his loving parents. He's going off to college. He's pursuing his dreams. He's visiting his parents at the edge of all realms.
Yeah, well, yeah. And without the burden of everything that he did and everything that happened, and he doesn't have to remember any of that stuff. I mean, he was a newborn. Essentially. Yeah. Now, that was one of the only things that I didn't like as well. Simply Rumple saying that an eternity there could be like the blink of an eye back in the real world or the other realm. And so my question was, how did Gideon visit at all then? Like, he could go there and go back and go there and go back, like turn around and just go back and miss their lives. A blink of an eye. I thought that was a little extreme. Maybe he was exaggerating.
He had to walk toward the cabin following specific coordinates, or else he would end up in some other timeline completely.
Then the other part of that was Belle knew what she was doing, but Rumple didn't. So why didn't Rumple go by himself and leave Belle back not aging, waiting for him? And then when he succeeded, he could go join her with no time having passed for her and then live as a mortal. Instead, he waited there while she got really, really, really old and died.
Well, and that's what she wanted.
That's what she wanted, but he didn't know that all those years. He thought I was like, dude, by the time the sun sets, it's going to be too late to live your life with her.
But then again, part of his thought here was that it was something about true love when the sun sets.
True.
And so that seems reasonable that he would think, well, I need to therefore have my true love with me. Maybe we have to share true love's kiss right when the sun is setting.
Yeah. Those were just a couple little things, but none of it really matters that much because time works differently there.
Yeah.
I guess that does explain the timeline. Not really, though.
Yeah, the timeline still hurts a little bit.
Because Gideon was 18 before they even went there, which means 18 years had passed.
Yeah.
Since season 6 ended.
Here's how I think they're getting around that. Rumple said when he suddenly pulled the Guardian out of his pocket he said it was time for him to go to the moment that she was waiting for him, whether she knew it or not. Which implies a little under the table time travel as well.
Interesting.
But still, I liked seeing. I thought the same thing as you. It was like, I guess they just didn't want to cast an adolescent Gideon for one moment. I liked that it was another half cockamamie scheme that didn't work when he dropped the dagger in the water too. It was a nice idea.
A beautiful moment, though.
It was
when he gave it up, because he would not have done that in season 6. Like that just shows character development.
He would not have done that for the last 300 years.
Yes.
Yeah, and that he, as a family, they pursued this together.
Mm-hmm.
Let's help free Daddy from the Dark One curse. And it wasn't just cleaving himself from the dagger, because the whole point of that was he wanted to be able to have all the power. He wanted to be the power, be the power, be the power, be the power.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
And not be controlled by the dagger.
Right.
Here, he wants to give up all that power. He wants to be mortal. He wants to die with her. And it even looked like he was willingly making himself look like he was aging, because when they were on the bridge, I thought some of his hair looked a bit gray too.
Oh, well, it always was. I thought.
Maybe.
Or Robert Carlyle's just aged more since, but that's not really his hair anyway, so.
I also don't think that women's hair grows in gray in one perfect little stripe at a time.
Well, maybe it does. I mean, there's got to be something enchanted about their lives.
True.
Bubble wands didn't sound very enchanted. Like, their lives were nice in Storybrooke, but they were also very, very normal.
Except for having a Polaroid camera. But then again, and it's hilarious
Came
to
from
see
Gold Shop, I mean.
the couple scenes where they're in some form of fairy tale land, and there's a Polaroid camera sitting there while Belle is doing her research in their big library. And the Polaroid camera is right there, that juxtaposition there. But
awesome.
Then again, it makes total sense, because a Polaroid camera is the only camera that would work away from the rest of technology.
Yep.
Oh,
as long as you have enough power to actually power the flash or power the mechanics of the Polaroid.
True.
But a bag of batteries wouldn't be much of a stretch for them to be carrying with them.
Yeah.
But that part's enchanted. But yeah, you don't need a dark room for film, and you don't need like a computer or some other thing or a way to charge it or anything like that.
Yeah.
I just realized Polaroids are the best cameras ever. We should all stock up on Polaroids.
They're like instant Instagram.
Instagram IRL.
Yeah, exactly. So this big thing that they dropped on us, and also an implied big thing, is there's this special guardian who can relieve Rumple of the dagger. It sounds like this guardian would have the power to take the dagger and somehow free Rumple from the Dark One curse without having to kill Rumple, and perhaps this being the final end to the Dark One power. Maybe.
What did Belle say anything about the guardian in the prophecy?
No.
Yeah, so that's kind of strange.
Well, it must be that Rumple discovered this thing about the guardian later.
He buried her and then, like, found out about the guardian.
Did some more research. I failed Dark One 101 for the last 6 seasons. What?
Was that a class?
That's what I'm saying. If it were, I failed.
Oh.
What was the thing? Like, I thought last year there was like this Dark One thing about only one person has the strength or something to hold the darkness forever or something. Wasn't that a thing last year?
Yeah, that was, Merlin had said that perhaps there would be someday someone powerful enough to wield the dark magic and light magic.
Which, whatever.
Was that actually Rumple? Because Rumple was prophesized, to be the savior, which that was a bomb that never really blew up. Or it did blow up, but whatever. But
Before.
so it seemed like maybe he was that one, because the way that Once Upon a Time ended was when light and dark did the right thing, the final battle was defeated and Once Upon a Time ended. And now in the spinoff, we see that he's given up the power. It's not controlling him anymore. Right. So this guardian, I think, is someone completely different from that person that was prophesized to wield all light and dark magic.
They strongly implied it was Alice.
You think so?
Yes, very much.
Okay, yeah.
I mean,
that the guardian was Alice?
Literally said he was leaving to the moment that she was waiting for him, even if she didn't know it yet, and he wound up right next to her.
Right. What if it was the rabbit, though? Because there was the rabbit right there. Maybe the rabbit is the guardian.
Maybe. However...
Why is it that rabbit?
It's bunnies.
this
bunnies.
It's bunnies all the way down.
Bunnies.
This Alice seems to be a combination character of Alice, the White Rabbit, and the Mad Hatter.
True.
She does.
Right down to wearing a Halloween mask of the White Rabbit.
Mm-hmm.
So she could also be Bad Wolf.
Good point. So you think she's maybe the guardian, or what if the guardian is someone else? Here's a theory from Andrea T. from Los Angeles, California. She said, I wonder if the guardian is the woman that Victoria Belfry has trapped in the tower condos we saw in episode 3. Yeah. If this woman is so powerful that she could possibly bring back the dead.
Let's call her the Bat.
Yes, the Bat in the Belfry. Then she is probably powerful enough to take the Dark One darkness out of Rumple. Maybe. But my impression of her is that she would want to become the next Dark One.
Or something, yeah.
Maybe.
She's not to be trusted. She's no guardian.
The woman in the tower?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't yet get that impression from her, but perhaps I'll come around to that.
I would say, from what we know so far.
She's cool, but she's classic Once villain.
Maybe. It's either her or Alice that is the guardian. But here's the other question. They didn't explicitly say this or ask this in the episode, but I think this episode raises this question. Where is the dagger?
In present day?
Yeah.
Good question.
Does someone have it? Or is it hidden somewhere?
Did he have it with him? I guess he would have brought it with him.
Well, it seems like in Hyperion Heights, he is cursed just like everyone else. And it seems like maybe this whole thing was not his doing. Because he used Portal 2.0 to be able to get to Alice if she's the guardian. And it seems like if he needed to somehow, for some reason, get to Seattle, he could have just portaled here. Portals, this is generations later, or almost generation. This is a generation later with Once Upon a Time, basically. And we've already seen that Henry used a portal very easily to leave Storybrooke. And I think it's just safe to assume.
Why do you say generations?
Well, generation. I was exaggerating.
It's
18 years. I don't know how long a generation is, but we'll say a generation is 18 years. Or we'll say it's 9 years, so that way
Henry's
I can still
36.
say generations. That's the part of the timeline that doesn't really work. But...
Because, the others didn't age 18 years, certainly. He could be,
yeah, because he has a daughter that is 10 years or so. So if he's 36, that could make sense. But what doesn't make sense is that Rumple appeared in New Enchanted Forest when Henry was there going to the ball. And that was 18 years later.
He did?
Yeah. Because he showed up when Alice was like, oh boy, all of these weird people are coming for the ball.
But again, he went to the moment that she was waiting.
Right.
They did
so
that
you're saying
they
maybe
said
he
that
went
on purpose.
Back into the past to do that. Okay, maybe.
Or at the very least, I don't know whether they said it to correct that part of the timeline or if they just wanted for the slow kids in the audience to make sure they understood that, yes, he lived the rest of his life with Belle, but it was okay as far as the timeline goes. He was going to not very long after they went there.
Of all of the things in this episode, this is the one place where they didn't.
Hashtag hire the nerd.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, mainly, the main problem being how long they lived as a family before going to the Edge of Realms.
18 years, it seems.
Yeah, that's the part that's problematic, potentially. Because if he went to the moment in a time travel-y way, what does that mean for Gideon? Like, is there another Rumple out there somewhere still raising Gideon with Belle because he went back in the timeline? Blah, blah, blah. That's why I think they want to avoid time travel, so we don't start having conversations like that.
Yeah.
So
unless you build your show around time travel, time
Right.
travel gets really messy when you bring it into something.
right.
Unless you want to throw in some kind of donkey wheel, then it's okay.
Lost did handle time travel better than anyone.
Well, Doctor Who handles it pretty well too.
They have some issues.
Pretty well. Yeah.
I think as far as the curse goes, Rumple may not have had anything to do with it and he may have been a victim of it, but much like the last curse, he clearly had foresight of it and took precautions to remember when he needed to. Because Alice said that, or sorry, Tilly said that this is what he said to do so that he could remember, to show him the cup.
Yeah, and when you mentioned Tilly, let's bring her into this conversation, shifting this now to Hyperion Heights and Inspector Stoltzkin and Tilly. There's definitely a connection between them. And it seems like if she is the guardian, it would make sense for when she caught Henry previously and she said something about Rumple has told me all about you, which, wait a minute, timeline-wise, that would be only a few hours or half a day since when Rumple entered.
There's time for that.
Unless what we saw when Rumple entered into New Enchanted Forest, that could have happened a few days before the ball.
Right.
I can understand that.
Because she sounded like people had been showing up for the ball for a while.
True. Yeah, it's not only today, it's they're getting in a little early. Okay. Yeah, so then a few days is enough time for Rumple to say, it's your kids, Marty. We got to save your kids. And then explain everything to Alice. But she's I think the most interesting new character in Once Upon a Time. And it's from a different perspective. Say it again, Erin.
She's fantastic. Like, this is when we first started the Once Upon a Time in Wonderland podcast, we did an episode that was like our greatest hopes for the series. And mine was like, one of mine was that we would have like the riddles and the dialect and the sing-songy back and forth. And that didn't really happen in Once Upon a Time in Wonderland, but it's happening now with her little, like, she's just being very Alice. Like, what's the point of an unsolvable puzzle? Well, what's the point of a solvable one? Like, that's very much, that's Wonderland. And that's what I really hoped to see in Once Wonderland. And as much as I loved that series, this is making me very happy.
That's a good point. She's kind of more Wonderlandy and other places than Wonderland was.
Yeah. But why is it that she can be fully awake if not for her pills, whereas everyone else is not awake? Or at least everyone that
I
we know
wondered
of.
that too, but it strikes me the same way as something from season 1. Belle was... Goodness, my memory. Belle was in the basement of the hospital, right? That's who
Right.
Regina had awake
Yeah.
and in the basement. So
But, well, she
Was
wasn't
she awake?
awake.
she wasn't?
No, because remember when
Sure about
Jefferson broke her out, he said, go find Rumpelstiltskin and tell him Regina did this to you. And it wasn't until Rumple took Belle up to the the well and he dropped the true love potion in it and brought magic and the curse was broken. Well, actually, sorry, dropping the magic in had nothing to do with it. When Emma broke the curse, that's when Belle said Rumple, and that whole moment that
Was
they
she
had.
just in a haze?
But it was
Because there wasn't. She was not both until Lacey.
right, and that was Regina's doing. But I think you're thinking maybe of David, who was kind of in a haze when he woke up until the windmill at Rumple's shop, and then that put David back into his full.
I mean, that's
person.
a good correlation as well. But he was kind of an anomaly because I think for curse purposes he was sort of half dead. So
Oh, I remember it more clearly now.
okay,
It was in
well, you're off your pills, so
No, I'm actually on them.
I know. I was thinking that too.
'Cause I have a bad tooth thing going on right now, which if I sound a little bit weird, it's because of my teeth. But I remember now, in season 2, it was Hook shot Belle, remember? Which pushed her across the line. And when she crossed the town line, she forgot who she was. So when they brought her back to Storybrooke when she was healed, I think, if I remember correctly, Regina also did something to kind of
I don't remember any
help
of this.
in the process. And that's when she became Lacey after she woke up and got out of the hospital. Because crossing the town line, she forgot everything.
Yeah, I was mostly just thinking of intra-curse state.
Yeah.
I actually read, like, way back in season 2, a fan fiction that was so much like this, and it wasn't even posted. A friend sent it to me. So it's not like once read it and they're like, this is great, let's do this.
Unless they're reading your email.
It was, maybe they are reading my email. And that's a little bit creepy. Because this is so similar, except it was the last curse. And it was like Alice was mad. Like Wonderland made everybody mad, which is very Wonderlandy. And Alice was mad when the curse hit. And so when she woke up in Storybrooke, she was just still mad. And everyone just thought that she was mad and needed to be medicated. And so that's how they kept her from spilling the beans of the curse.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. Where's this friend now? Writing for the show?
Maybe she works for Disney.
She's a prophetess.
Oh, okay, so here's a question for the Alice expert. Did she eat in the actual story? Did she eat sandwiches? Was that one of the things that made her small?
No, I think she just ate like cookies.
I remember mushrooms and I remember
And a potion.
but
Like
I'm mostly familiar with the animated Disney version.
There was an eat me and a drink me.
Yeah. I was just trying to figure out if the sandwich, since that's basically what it did, and I hadn't even thought about it until just now.
And inside the sandwich was orange marmalade.
It was cookies and cake.
I thought the smashed up pills in the sandwich were a little far-fetched, but I think that it was also very Wonderland for her to get tricked into eating something that, as she put it, made her small.
Yeah, I loved that symbolism.
But that moment, seeing her open it up and realize that she'd been forced to take those pills and seeing her face, it was like, oh, my heart broke. This great character that's so diverse. She's kind of like the new Rumpelstiltskin in the way that she's very diverse and you don't really know what we're going to get from her, which makes her very entertaining.
I'm curious how, even just with her memories coming back, how she knows so much. Enough to mention the man behind the beast and all of that.
Well, it seems like she's not been taking her medication for a little while.
Sure, but like, how did she ever know that? How did she know Rumpelstiltskin that well? Or know
how
his
did he
story?
know that she was going to remember?
Oh, maybe she read the book.
Yeah.
But like, he clearly knew that she was going to not be cursed or that she was going to have these memories somehow, because otherwise, why wouldn't he have just written his name in squid ink 1,000 times instead of like getting her to show him the cup?
True. That confused me a little bit too.
So that would tell me that he knew this curse was coming but maybe he had nothing to do with it. But somehow he could protect her, because if she's the guardian, she might have been able to protect herself. But he is apparently still the Dark One because he could get shot and recover from it. He's still immortal.
And he knows it now.
Yeah, and that's why he's kind of angry.
Can we talk about his dearie and how it meant nothing to Belfry at all?
Yeah.
Like, I thought that was going to be the indicator that she found out that he remembered, because that was the indicator to us that he remembered.
So she's super confusing.
And it seemed like his test for her, because he said it very deliberately, and then she just reacted like, okay, whatever.
Well, I thought he was trying to send her a message, but...
Well, he changed tone after that. Then it was more like, well, I know something you don't know. I am not left-handed.
I don't... If it weren't for the weird thing about the tower and finding her daughter buried under Seattle, I would swear she's not awake.
That's true. Maybe.
And referring to Cinderella as Cinderella.
Yeah, well, no.
And all
did
that
she?
stuff.
Did she really?
She
though?
did. Yep.
Yeah, that's true.
When?
In the scene with the
In the
guardian.
tower? With the guardian, listen to you.
In the scene with the lady in the tower,
in the belfry.
She said Cinderella, and she said Henry's daughter.
Yeah.
Oh,
Like,
that's
he
yeah. She
referred
did
to
lay it all
Lucy.
out. I guess that's so strange. Then she's played it real weird in
Well,
the town.
Then what that makes me think is she doesn't know who Rumple really is.
She seems to have gotten herself into something she doesn't understand.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, wait, but she didn't. Oh, it wasn't. Okay, now I'm trying to remember, like 2 episodes ago. She knew Hook, not Rumple.
Right.
Yeah.
I was thinking she knew Rumple. Okay, so
She
that
knew
makes
Wish
way more
Hook,
sense.
the one that we're watching now, somehow.
Right. Okay, but she didn't know Rumple. We haven't seen that before.
Right. She doesn't
Okay.
necessarily know Regina or Rumple. She did digging of some sort to find out who Henry was.
Mhm.
And she should know actually who Regina is because of the I'm his mother moment.
Yeah, true.
You tend not to forget the face of someone who magics you across the room.
Well, no, that was Drizella. Yes, I got it right.
She did that to Drizella?
Yeah.
Good job.
I thought
kid.
she'd...
Because
No,
Lady
you're right.
Tremaine said,
You're right.
kill him. And
Right.
Drizella's like, you think I'm pretty, but haha, I'm going to kill you.
I-
Which we'll get to talking about Drizella and what she thinks
was-
a little bit
I
later,
don't think
because
that-
there's an interesting theory about that.
That's funny.
But I'm really thinking that Victoria doesn't know who Rumple is. And so that's why he's all like, I found something bigger and I'm not going to tell you. Nah, 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 nah. Because he knows she doesn't know who he is, even though she's awake.
Well, I also believed her "Who are you?" to Tilly. She doesn't know who she is either. She only knew the connection to Rumple because of his business card in her backpack, and she knew the doctor to call because she had a prescription bottle in the backpack.
Very true.
She didn't
Very
really
true.
know who she was until she dug through the backpack.
Which makes it seem more and more like Victoria may not have been the one to cast this curse, or at least
Yeah.
she's not truly in control. The bat in the belfry is probably in control.
Maybe.
What did she say to Rumple, or sorry, what did she say to Weaver about that wasn't our arrangement? Or did he say that? That just reminded me of season 1 when Rumpelstiltskin and Regina had the deal that if he said please, she had to do what he said.
Hmm.
And that was
Oh,
agreed
yeah.
upon before the curse.
I forgot that. That was a fun moment.
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah, the arrangement, talking about arrangement and stuff like that, makes me think that when this curse was cast, maybe Rumple just playing the part of a regular peasant and maybe with a little bit of knowledge said, hey, just put me and my friend here in a good position, or just whatever, and I'll work for you. This will be our arrangement that I'll be working for you. And then things start happening.
Things. bad things.
Yeah. She could have very easily made a deal with him without knowing who he was,
Yeah. And
especially since he's from another realm.
mhm. And apparently, Wish Realm Rumple is not running around wreaking havoc, at least not in a real realm. He's doing that in a fake real realm somehow, unless he somehow got out. Let's not think about that. We don't want to dwell on such weird thoughts like that. Because imagine
Season 8.
good Rumple versus bad Rumple. Ugh. Two dark ones of the same flavor. Not a good situation. But Once Upon a Time opened up that can of monkeys. So,
whoa,
yeah.
And worms just turned into monkeys. That was amazing too.
And hey, you know what else would be amazing is if you go to Creation Entertainment's Once Upon a Time convention. The next one is coming up November 3rd through the 5th in Burbank, California, and you will want to be there for this. Just listen to this totally awesome voiceover.
The official Once Upon a Time convention comes to Burbank November 3rd through 5th with Lana Parrilla, Jennifer Morrison, Colin O'Donoghue, and Rebecca Mader. See them live at the Marriott Burbank Airport Hotel. Visit onceuponaTimeConvention.com for details.
Doesn't that just make you want to go? It should. Because Once Upon a Time Convention.com or CreationENT.com is Creation Entertainment's official convention for Once Upon a Time. You get to hang out with the cast like Lana Parrilla, Jennifer Morrison, Rebecca Mader, Colin O'Donoghue, Emily DeRavin, Lee Ehrenberg, Gil McKinney, Beverly Elliott, Chris Gauthier, Michael Coleman, and Raphael Sabarge. You get to attend sessions, and none of this having to wait in line hoping you make it into a session. You get everything you pay for. You are guaranteed seats into the sessions and events that you pay for. So there are these great opportunities to meet some of the cast, to attend different panels, to have some fun with the cast too. Like you can sing with them as your backup singers. You can get signatures and photos. You can attend other sessions. We will even be at one of the upcoming Once Upon a Time conventions. We can't make it to this one in Burbank, but we hope you can too. So go to creationent.com to check out the schedule for the upcoming Once Upon a Time convention or the schedule for the other upcoming Once Upon a Time conventions. And we'd love for you to go. And when you do, you can be our correspondent. Send us photos, send us videos, send us sound clips. Tell us your highlights from the Once Upon a Time convention. It's an amazing opportunity to meet some of the cast. And especially like Emily DeRavin, now that you've seen this amazing episode, wouldn't it just be so much fun to ask her a bunch of questions now that her storyline is essentially done? You could ask her things about, okay, now that your character is gone from the show, what was your favorite thing? Or what did the writers tell you in the beginning when they hired you for this role? What did you think about Once Upon a Time? What was it like to be aged so quickly in an episode? What did that feel like? What did you think when you looked at yourself in the mirror after they put on the makeup? You can ask fun questions like that. There are other opportunities. So watch the hashtag OUAT Burbank on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and connect over at creationent.com to attend the Once Upon a Time official convention. You will not regret it. You will regret not making it to one of these conventions. So make sure you get your ticket over at creationent.com. And thank you, Creation Entertainment, for your support.
That was the best old makeup I think I've ever seen.
It was really good.
I couldn't find anything wrong with it. It was like not too much, not too little. It's like, I think that might actually be what she looks like when she gets old.
Say to her, you age really well.
Something that WWO in the chat room just reminded me of is that when Tilly was talking about her pills, she referred to them as Victoria's pills.
Yeah.
So I wonder if there is some more backstory to that, or if she just meant that because she knows that Victoria asked Weaver to give them to her.
Could be.
Yeah. Maybe Victoria's just really, really good at being conniving.
Well, there's a really interesting connection here that makes me also think Alice isn't only the guardian. She is also Wishhook's daughter. I know we've talked about this before, but after this episode, I'm convinced. Here's some feedback from Lindsay saying, this episode had some clues that Alice is Wishhook's daughter. It wasn't a coincidence that when Weaver and Rogers were talking about Tilly, Weaver mentions that Roger has been on the case of the lost girl, Roger's daughter. Then there was the obvious chess piece. So who's the vengeful witch that locked her up? Don't you think it's another Queen of Hearts? Obviously not. Because after all, we could have another Queen of Hearts. But the chess piece, she was there
forgot
playing
about
chess.
the chess piece
Yeah.
entirely.
So she was playing chess outside of the hospital room, and Wish Hook comes over and makes a chess move. He moves the black rook in front of the white knight. Back in episode 702, A Pirate's Life, that's when Wish Hook said that he has his daughter's rook and she has his knight.
Oh, wow.
So the fact that just the way they shot it, it makes it obvious to me that's his daughter.
Okay, I looked at the chat room when I was watching live, and everybody starts going, so she's Hook's daughter? I'm like, where are you getting that? Who is Hook's daughter? Like, what?
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
And WWO in the chat is bringing up, well, what about the age difference? And I think it makes sense because, remember, Wish Hook is older.
It's Once Upon a Time.
Yeah, and it's Once Upon a Time. But Wish Hook is older. He was aged back because of that little potion with maybe some squid ink mixed into it that Victoria then used on him back in New Enchanted Forest.
Right.
So he is actually older than he looks. Which, then again, Hook has always been older than he looks. But we mean he's even older than the older that he isn't, that he doesn't look like.
Right.
And he's seemingly been looking for her long enough that she could have aged to be, like, she's clearly still a kid, air quote. Like, I would say she's a teenager-ish.
Really?
Like, a late teenager, but still, I would say she's young at least.
Yeah, I probably would have put her early 20s.
Early 20s, late teens, somewhere around there probably, yeah.
And so if he's been looking for her long enough that she's gotten that old, not that she's old, but grown up that much.
Yeah.
That would work.
Keeper of Squid Ink actually had a theory that maybe Alice is actually Belle in some kind of reincarnated form.
No.
But I can't really see that being happening.
Sorry, no. However, there was a moment in her very first scene that I thought it was Belle when she was up on the roof in Hyperion Heights. For a second, I was like, what is going on with Belle? Oh, it's not Belle.
Again, Belle has played a kind of crazy, deranged woman before.
That must be, yes. That's funny.
Watch Lost and you'll understand. So Victoria Belfry doesn't seem to be awake, or half awake, kind of unaware of what she's actually gotten herself into. But it seems like Alice was saying, or Tilly was saying, that the reason Victoria wants to spread everyone out is because when they're together, they'll be more powerful. And if they're all together, then they'll remember.
Well, if true love's kiss breaks any curse, it doesn't have to be true love between the two people that the curse says it has to be, right?
Right. Because after all, it was Emma's true love's kiss on Henry's forehead that broke the curse. And I keep kissing my son on the forehead, and there are no curses breaking. Sorry.
I mean,
doesn't happen all the time.
Do you suspect a curse of some kind?
When I change his diapers, sometimes I do.
You kiss him on the forehead, diapers clean. It's all good.
I wish. It doesn't work that way, though. I thought it would, but no.
But I'm trying to think of things that weakened the curse, the original curse. Like Emma kissing Graham weakened the curse but didn't break it.
Yeah, weakened the curse on him.
On him only.
Sometimes
But
I think
maybe she's worried about things like that.
I think they regret some of the kissing in season 1. I mean, remember how it sure wasn't taking them their whole lives to figure out how to break Rumple's curse in season 1. True love's kiss, and he was starting to change.
Yeah.
Like, why did that never work again? Oh, because you regret that decision.
And it was also when Emma made the decision to stay in Storybrooke that the clock ticked. And it was when she became sheriff that the earthquake happened and the mines underneath the Hyperion Heights, underneath the future parking lot, then broke open. Here in Hyperion Heights, we haven't seen earth-shattering things really happen because of the curse. The only thing we've really seen happen because of the weakening of the curse is flowers growing.
And somebody informed her of them.
Yeah.
And that's even not necessarily having anything to do with the curse and having more to do with Lucy wishing in the wishing well.
Yeah. And it was Lucy who gave the flowers to her grandmother. Because the little note said, these started growing up around town. I thought you'd like to see them regularly because they're so pretty.
I guess I never got that far in the note. Both times I saw it, I thought it was kind of like, I thought you'd want to know.
Yeah.
These started growing yesterday. Thought you'd want to know.
But then again, it makes sense for Lucy to be like, Grandma, you should see these pretty flowers. You should know that these are growing now in the gardens. The gardens aren't dead. That's why you need to not bulldoze it.
Pave
Did
it.
she tell Victoria that she thinks she's the evil stepmother? Like, because Henry was pretty clear to Regina, I think you're the evil queen. Because she said, do you really think I'm capable of doing something so evil? And he said, of course. But we don't see any interaction really between Lucy and her step grandmother.
That's true. Now, she does seem to think her step grandmother is someone bad. But,
Yeah, so why would she give her the flowers?
But then again, it also seems like Victoria knows that Lucy could be trouble. But she has to be trouble in order to destroy everything she loves most in order to bring back Anastasia.
That part's convoluted. I choose to not think about that part right now.
I'm still hoping they'll show us the fine print on that one at some point.
Speaking of fine print, you know who reads every piece of fine print and gladly signs at the dotted line? Not to give away the village, but they would for us. It's our wonderful heroes. And for this episode, I'd like to thank Lisa Slack, Amy Cavalier, and our 23 heroes on Patreon. Their kind support of the podcast keeps it going episode after episode. It pays for the website hosting, the podcast hosting, which, yes, those are actually two different things. Pays for all the plugins and software we have to use in order to run the site. Pays for things like buying the episodes from iTunes so that we can download them, get the screenshots, get sound clips here and there, be able to rewatch the episodes since we can't always watch them live on Friday nights. And that's with your wonderful support. You are one of our, you can be one of our amazing heroes. That's over at oncepodcast.com/hero. If you'd like to become a hero, it can be as little as $1 per month. But think about, what is the podcast worth to you? What value do we bring to you? How much do we make you laugh? I mean, you could think about, maybe it would be a penny per minute of the podcast, and then extrapolate that into how much it would be per month. But you can check out your options over at oncepodcast.com/hero. Every little bit helps, and we really appreciate that support. So thanks, Lisa and Amy, for supporting us for this episode. You'll hear even more people in our next episode, which will be the first episode of the new month. So if you want your name mentioned, get over there to oncepodcast.com/hero and be one of our wonderful, amazing heroes. Just like that wonderful, amazing, beautiful flower that's starting to grow in the garden. You can be that flower to us. That's at oncepodcast.com/heroes. Speaking of flowers, let's talk about ivy or Drizella.
That has nothing to do with flowers.
Flowers grow on ivy.
I mean, no.
Flowers grow around ivy.
Okay.
Poison ivy.
That's what we'll call her. Poison Ivy.
Is this the first time we've heard her name? This is the first time I remember hearing her name.
I think so.
I actually just thought that her curse name was Drizella.
Yeah.
Somebody said it last week in the chat.
Might have been in the credits somewhere in writing. I think actually someone did say there was a name in the press release, but we never heard that name in the episode. Now I've forgotten what name it was. It might have been Ivy's name.
One of my questions got answered. Maybe it had been answered before, but we know for sure that even though she refers to Victoria Belfry as Victoria Belfry sometimes, she does know that it's her mother.
Yeah, and she's desperately seeking her approval.
Little too desperately, if you ask me.
And they are definitely sisters, her and Cinderella, or her and Jacinda, because that sister, that got scrappy a little bit.
Mm-hmm. So, what's going on with her and Henry and the drinks?
One person in her entire life has actually listened to her and shown her some consideration. And of course, she instantly went head over heels for him. / gets to maybe hurt Jacinda in the process. So cool. I think that's all there is to that.
Actually.
Yeah. I thought it was kind of hilarious how transparent they were about the whole thing. And let me catch my mother doing something that makes you happy.
Yeah.
Like, no pretense there whatsoever.
Yeah. She did have great lines.
Oh, my goodness. So many.
I liked the exile you to Canada. Are they still filming in Canada, right? Even though they're not in Steveston?
Yeah, they are still filming in Canada. In fact, some of the locations where they've shot are actually locations they've used before in Once Upon a Time. They're just decorated a little bit differently, like parks and some of the outdoor scenes.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, Aaron, for that they offended you in Canada. Unless you want her exiled to Canada, and then you guys can be best buds.
Who wouldn't want to live in Canada? That's what I thought.
Cricket A. Cricket A.
But
fictional Canada, too.
Yes. Man, was she making eyes at Henry, though. Like, not just, hey, let's have a drink together, but she didn't take her eyes off of him while she was drinking. And just the way she looked at him and that look, and then the screen cuts to black, makes me think she is really trying to manipulate things. And she did, after all, say, it's time I think about myself.
Yeah, I don't think it was super intentional. I think it's just whatever. But at least in her case, once again, just like season 1, I mean, it's a little bit like season 1, she doesn't know that he's actually married.
Yeah.
# we were cursed.
Right. I hope that goes nowhere, because just like season 1, that's part I'm really just not interested in. We know that it's bogus because they're cursed, and we know it's going away no matter what happens now, so let's not spend a lot of time on it. There's enough happening that all is borderline doesn't matter in Hyperion Heights, because it's all just not their life. So, yeah. They've done a pretty good job not creating a lot of drama around things that are only the result of the curse.
What if Drizella is actually the one who cast the curse? And
does she seem capable?
No.
Well, think about this, though. Whoever cast this curse did a kind of weird job of it. There are things about this curse that are a little bit out of the ordinary. And what if, since Drizella is so eager, even anxious for her mother's approval, she discovers, there's this curse that we might be able to use in order to bring back Anastasia, and I want to make right this wrong. And so therefore, she enacts the curse, doesn't really know what she's doing.
How does that help bring back Anastasia?
Yeah, I don't know. We'll discover that soon. I mean, after all, why? I mean, that is a big question, though. Why this curse? Why did they have to cast this curse in order to bring back Anastasia?
They had nothing to do with it.
Perhaps.
They're just caught up in it too, but why Belfry's awake, I don't know. Maybe she woke up some other way and she's hiding from everyone that she's awake, not because she cast the curse, but because she doesn't know who cast the curse and she's still hiding. Trying to figure out how to accomplish her goals while she maybe tries to figure out what's going on as well.
So like season 3
She might be trying to figure out how to break it too.
with Green Lady. Oh, forgot her name.
Zelina?
Yes, Zelina.
Green Lady. Wow. That's not offensive at all.
I feel really bad that I'm stumbling over things that I used to be able to rattle off in my sleep about Once Upon a Time. It's
Your
just
pain pills are making you small.
yes, they are. So back in season 3, it was Zelina who cast the curse.
You shouldn't have put so many in your sandwich.
She kept it a secret that she cast the curse.
Oh, right.
And she played along with everyone trying to figure out who it was and shifting the blame on someone else. But that doesn't mean that we're going to have something exactly like that here in Hyperion Heights.
Right.
Well, because this curse seems so different, just even in that it's not in Storybrooke or even a secluded area of our world.
And this even goes back to, why was the curse even necessary at all? I mean, maybe, yes, part of it was someone wanted to get revenge on someone else. But we've already seen travel between the realms is super easy. And in the past, that was the reason curses were cast, except in the case of Peter Pan casting the curse. He wanted to build the new story, the new Neverland on top of Storybrooke. But then Regina transformed the curse while it was being cast. She transformed it into the curse that then took everyone back to Neverland, or back to Enchanted Forest, while Emma and Henry left Storybrooke. You know, that first time that Once Upon a Time ended.
right.
I think they implied, though, that they need Lucy to wake up Anastasia because Henry is protected. And so maybe casting this curse is the only way that they can get Lucy to, what was the word? Give up her belief.
Yeah. Destroy everything she holds dear in some way. Said something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it may be way simpler than what we're giving them credit for, but I mean, that's okay too.
It's definitely a lot less straightforward than in season 1, where we knew that it was Regina and we knew why.
Yeah.
And then they still backtracked and made it convoluted, and they made the fail-safe, and they made True Love's potion added with the hairs, and Rumpelstiltskin actually orchestrating all of it. But that worked then.
Well, it never
knew that the whole time.
Yeah, I never got the feeling that season 1 ended differently than they wanted it to in the beginning. Personally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree.
Hey, cast your votes on the closing line, because I think we're ready to wrap this thing up.
I can't remember if I got the right words on the one that I put in.
That one is my vote.
Okay.
Oh, or this one. Did we want to talk about all the Disney characters that we saw dressed up?
I know.
We mentioned that we saw a bunch, but I don't think there's really much to talk about.
If you could do that long one, if you can make that work, that would be hilarious.
Either the first one or the one I put in.
The first one's good too. But
I think I like the first one. That one will be easier.
I would actually kind of like to see you try the long one.
Well, we just have to go back to the cul-de-sac scene and listen and make sure we got the words right.
Yep. Okay, chat room, everyone watching live, watching the video replay too. Just, occupy yourselves with something.
I still think the YouTube videos should have rough cut in the title.
Huh.
Or unedited or something.
What music is playing right now?
This is the Once Upon a Time episode. The
unending soundtrack.
Okay.
For the party.
Chat room can't hear this right now.
Oh. So we just sound like idiots. She actually didn't say it to Lucy. She just thought
I
she
know.
was.
Yeah. Circus Afro, Circus Afro, polka dot, Afro. Okay, here it is.
Begging for candy. She's so hilarious.
I typed that in.
Okay. Oh, you got it right.
Yeah.
Which one of you wants to say the response?
What?
The response, okay.
What do you mean?
Aaron.
That part?
That part.
Oh, just the okay?
Yeah.
I'll say it. That's fine. Okay.
All right, let's wrap this thing up. Let me turn these things back on so chat room can hear the sound. All right. Well, this wraps up our discussion about this episode, Beauty. If you want to continue the discussion, please join our forums over at oncepodcast.com/forums. You can also connect with us on Twitter at oncepodcast and send us your feedback for future episodes of Once Upon a Time. Go to oncepodcast.com/feedback for all of your options over there. You can send us voice message, email us, call and leave a voicemail any time of the day. All your feedback options are over there, oncepodcast.com/feedback. And make sure if you email us, put the name of the episode in the subject line of the email, and that helps it show up a little bit better for us. And that's at oncepodcast.com/feedback. If you enjoyed this episode of our podcast and you think someone else should listen to it too, then please go to oncepodcast.com/311 and share it out with your family and friends. And please connect with us. Let me do this differently. And you can connect with us each individually on Twitter. I'm Daniel J. Lewis on Twitter at the Daniel J. Lewis.
I'm Jeremy Laughlin on Twitter at Phlegon. That's PHLEGON.
I'm Erin on Twitter at Erin J. Cruz.
This podcast would not be possible without our wonderfully generous heroes and our great team of volunteers making each episode possible, episode after episode. So thanks to Jack for writing our show notes, John Buchanan for editing our episodes, Hunter Hathaway and Jacqueline for providing our spoilers. You'll hear from them in the next episode from our podcast. Thanks to Jacqueline and Matthew Paul for moderating the forums, Keb for masterminding our timeline, and to my co-hosts, Jeremy, Aaron, Hunter, and Jacqueline for hosting this podcast with me. And until next time, And until next time, are you done begging for candy? Can we go home? I stepped in I can't say this one.
That's hilarious.
You know what? Let me just do the outro again with our Twitter things because I gave a lot of stuff.
I give a lot of stuff.
Let me just start with this. And please connect with each of us on Twitter. I'm Daniel J. Lewis on Twitter at the Daniel J. Lewis.
Sorry, I could have sworn you were going to say mine. I don't know why.
It's spelled PHLEGON.
It's a
Okay,
weird
let's do
psychic
this
link thing.
again. And connect with each of us individually. I'm Daniel J. Lewis on Twitter at the Daniel J. Lewis.
I'm Jeremy Laughlin on Twitter at Phlegon. That's PHLEGON.
I'm Erin on Twitter at Erin J. Cruz.
This podcast would not be possible without the generosity of our wonderful heroes and our great team behind us. So special thanks to Jack for writing our show notes, John Buchanan for editing our episodes, Hunter Hathaway and Jacqueline for providing our spoilers, Jacqueline and Matthew Paul for moderating the forums, Keb for masterminding the timeline, and Jeremy, Aaron, Hunter, and Jacqueline co-hosting this podcast with me. And until next time, are you done? Okay, John, you'll fix this music. And until next time, are you done begging for candy? Can we go home? I stepped in some pumpkin vomit and these shoes are worth more than your life.
Okay.
And thanks for listening. I'm not sure I actually liked that one when I said it. I know what I was missing.
Attitude?
Yes. So let me do it again. And this music, I know the music won't align. This will be all fixed in editing. And until next time, are you done begging for candy? Can we go home? I stepped in pumpkin vomit, and these shoes are worth more than your life.
Okay.
And thanks for listening. Once Podcast is a proud member of Noodle.mx Network. Find more of our award-winning and award-nominated podcasts to make you think, laugh, and succeed at Noodle.mx. Big thanks to our heroes for supporting this episode of the podcast. If you want to be one of those amazing heroes too, then please go to oncepodcast.com/hero. And thank you for your support. I want to do a different
I was going to
outro.
say, you want to try the first one.
Yeah, I do. So, John, use this outro instead. And until next time... Wait, do I want to say? And until next time, I enjoyed our time together so much that I may visit you in prison. And thanks for listening.
But John, keep the other one just, to splice in as needed in other times of our lives. Because hearing Daniel say those words is simply amazing. In any combination.
Actually, I don't know which one I like better. I'll let John decide which one sounds better. All right, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us. I gotta let my teeth recover. Yeah. I don't want a repeat of 3 years ago when I had a horrible tooth thing going on, which I'm hoping I don't have again.
Horrible tooth thing.
Boo.
Yeah. All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us.
Good night.
Be back next week.